Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really diving into some fascinating theories. You guys sent us this interview with a researcher named Timothy Alberino, and he's got some really, really wild ideas about ancient civilizations and how they connect to the Bible.
Yeah, he's definitely an unconventional thinker. Alberino's basic idea is that the Bible, it's not just a human story, it's actually like interwoven with a much larger cosmic narrative.
So he's saying like there was more going on than just what we read about in the Bible. Like there's this whole other dimension to it.
Exactly. And one of the things he talks about is this idea that there were intelligent beings around long before humans even existed. He calls them the elder race.
Okay, I remember reading about that. He talks about the book of Job, right? Where it mentions these sons of God who were present at the creation of the earth.
Yeah, that's right. They're described as morning stars. And Alberino argues that they're definitely not human.
Okay, so if they're not human, then what are they?
Well, that's a great question. And Alberino doesn't really give us a definitive answer. But he does suggest that they're some kind of angelic beings with a much longer history than humanity.
That's a pretty wild idea. So we've got these morning stars, these angelic beings hanging out at the creation of the earth. And then what happens?
Well, according to Alberino, these morning stars weren't all good. He talks about this galactic rebellion led by this powerful, evil figure. He even compares him to like a cosmic Voldemort.
Whoa, okay, so we've got like a war in heaven situation going on here. And what does that have to do with us? With humans, I mean...
Well, Alberino believes that this rebellion actually had major consequences for Earth. He thinks it left the planet in ruins.
So is that what he's talking about when he refers to the Earth being formless and void in the first verses of Genesis?
Exactly. He interprets that as like the aftermath of this cosmic war. Like the Earth was basically devastated.
Wow, okay, so that's a pretty dramatic start to things. But then Alberino brings in this whole other element, this planet called Rahab.
Right, Rahab. This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, I've never even heard of this before. What is Rahab?
Well, it's mentioned in the Bible as being destroyed by the King of Heaven.
Okay, and Alberino thinks this was an actual planet.
Yeah, that's his theory. He even suggests that the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter is all that's left of it.
Hold on, the asteroid belt is a shattered planet. How does he even come up with that?
Well, he draws on some pretty vivid imagery from the Bible. There's this passage in Isaiah 51.9 where it talks about the King of Heaven cutting Rahab to pieces and piercing the dragon.
Okay, yeah, I remember reading that. But I always thought it was just like a metaphor or something.
That's how it's usually interpreted. But Alberino takes it literally. He believes it's describing an actual cosmic battle between the Son of God before his incarnation and this cosmic enemy who he identifies as Rahab.
Wow, that's a pretty bold interpretation. So you're saying there was this like intergalactic war and a planet got destroyed.
That's what Alberino's proposing.
I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, it's definitely thought-provoking.
It definitely makes you rethink things. And this is just the beginning. He goes on to connect all of this to the megaliths, those massive stone structures, like Stonehenge and the pyramid.
Okay, hold on. We're going from a shattered planet to ancient monuments. How did those fit into all of this?
Well, Alberino believes that the megaliths were built by a civilization that was far more advanced than we give them credit for.
So he's saying like ancient aliens built the pyramids.
Not necessarily aliens, but he definitely thinks that there was some kind of lost civilization with technology that we can barely even imagine today.
And he thinks they built these megaliths as like messages.
Exactly. He calls them messages in stone. He believes they were intentionally built to withstand cataclysmic events and to transmit knowledge across millennia.
So like time capsules.
Kind of, yeah. But on a much grander scale.
And he thinks these messages are somehow connected to the Bible, to the gospel.
That's right. He sees a profound connection between these ancient structures and the message of Christ.
Okay, I'm definitely going to need more explanation on that one. But before we get into that, I have to ask, what about the precision of these megaliths, like those incredible walls at Sacsayhuaman in Peru?
Oh, yeah. Sacsayhuaman. That's one of his favorite examples.
These stones fit together so perfectly, you can't even slip a blade between them. How is that even possible?
That's what's so mind-boggling. Alberino argues that the Inca couldn't have built those walls with the technology that they had at the time.
So if the Inca didn't build them, who did?
That's the million-dollar question. Alberino points to excavations that uncovered pre-Inca artifacts beneath the foundations, which suggests that a much older, more advanced civilization was at work.
Okay, so we've got this lost civilization that built these incredible structures. But who were they? And what happened to them?
Well, that's where things get even more mysterious. Alberino draws a fascinating parallel between the Sphinx in Egypt and the city of Cusco in Peru.
The city that's shaped like a puma.
Yeah, that one. He argues that both the Sphinx and Cusco are astronomically aligned to the same era, the Age of Leo, around 10,500 BC.
10,500 BC? That's going way back.
I know, right? And what's even more interesting is how he came to that conclusion. In Cusco, the layout of the city forms a distinctive X shape, and Alberino discovered that the Milky Way would have aligned perfectly with those axes, around 10,500 BC.
So he's saying that the city was intentionally designed to align with the stars.
That's his theory. And he found a similar alignment with the Sphinx and the constellation Leo during the same period.
So he's suggesting a connection between these two geographically distant locations. Like, could there have been a global civilization, a technologically advanced culture that existed before recorded history?
That's precisely what Alberino's proposed.
That's mind-blowing. But if this civilization was so advanced, what happened to them?
Well, Alberino believes that they were wiped out by a cataclysmic event, possibly a comet impact, around 10,500 BC.
So he's connecting this to the Younger Dryas impact event.
Exactly. The one that scientists now believe caused widespread devastation and climate change at the end of the last ice age.
So he's saying that the flood wasn't just a local event, but a global cataclysm.
That's right. He believes the evidence for a global flood is overwhelming, and that the myths and legends of ancient cultures worldwide corroborate the biblical account.
Okay, so let me try to sum this up. We've got a cosmic rebellion, a shattered planet, a lost civilization, and a global cataclysm. This is starting to feel like an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, it's definitely a wild ride.
But where does the gospel fit into all of this?
That's the key question, isn't it? Alberino argues that understanding this grander cosmic narrative, the fall of the elder race, the rebellion, the cataclysm, and the rise of humanity, can actually deepen our understanding of the gospel. Helps us see the story of Christ's redemption in a whole new light.
So it's not just about our individual salvation, it's about something much bigger, something cosmic.
Exactly. It's about the restoration of all things, the reconciliation of heaven and earth, the ultimate triumph of good over evil.
And Alberino believes that these ancient stories, structures, and symbols all point towards that grand narrative.
Exactly.
This is definitely making me rethink everything I thought I knew about the Bible and ancient history. But hold on, there's so much to unpack here. Maybe it's time to take a breath and let all of this sink in. We'll be back in a flash to dive even deeper into Alberino's fascinating theories.
Sounds good to me. Welcome back. I'm glad we had a second to process all that.
Yeah.
Alberino, he doesn't stop there. He has a really interesting take on how a lot of people, especially in the West, tend to approach the Bible.
Oh, yeah. He said we treat it like a relic instead of a message, something like that.
Exactly. He basically says we see the Bible as this sacred object, something to be revered and protected, but we don't really engage with it as a source of knowledge. You know, like we're afraid to ask too many questions.
Right. So we're missing out on what it's really trying to tell us.
Well, in a way, yeah. Alberino wants us to see the Bible as a complex and multi-layered message system, one that uses symbolism and allegory, and even a kind of ancient code to convey these deeper truths.
So it's like there's this hidden language. We need to learn how to decode it.
Exactly. And Alberino says to crack that code, we need to read the Bible in its original cultural context.
The context of the ancient Near East.
Yeah.
Right?
He was talking about ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt, and all those surrounding cultures. That influenced the biblical writers.
Well, it's like we can't just read the Bible through our modern lens. We have to try to understand it the way those ancient people would have.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, one of the things Alberino points out is that a lot of the symbols and imagery in the Bible weren't actually unique to the Hebrew tradition.
Okay, I'm thinking like the cherubim.
Exactly. Those winged creatures, they were actually pretty common in the art and mythology of the ancient Near East.
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, it's fascinating. When you start to look at the Bible through this lens, it's like a whole new world opens up.
So Alberino is saying that to understand what those biblical writers were really trying to communicate, we need to understand how those symbols were used and understood in their original cultural setting.
Precisely.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. So it's like we're trying to decipher this ancient language.
Exactly. And Alberino actually uses the term esoteric to describe this hidden layer of meaning within the text.
Esoteric. I've heard that word before.
Yeah. It basically means like intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with specialized knowledge or interest.
So kind of like a secret code.
Kind of, yeah.
And
Alberino argues that the Bible, particularly the prophecies, is full of this encoded information that can only be understood through careful study and interpretation.
that's pretty intense, but it also sounds really cool. Like we're on a treasure hunt.
It is kind of like a treasure hunt. And you know who else thought so?
Ooh.
Isaac Newton.
Isaac Newton, the guy with the apple and gravity.
The one and only. He was obsessed with decoding the Bible, especially the Temple of Jerusalem.
Really?
Yeah, he believed that the Bible contained hidden scientific boy level and historical knowledge that had been lost for centuries.
So Newton was like an ancient code breaker.
In a way, yeah.
That's pretty wild. I never knew that about him.
Yeah, most people don't. But it just goes to show that there's always more to learn about the Bible than we might think.
Now, if Newton was trying to decode the Bible, where do the megaliths fit into all of this?
Well, Alberino believes that the megaliths were also built using this same esoteric language of symbolism and geometry.
Hold on. So he's saying those ancient structures like Stonehenge and the pyramids, they're like giant three-dimensional messages.
Exactly.
And they were designed to convey information across vast stretches of time.
That's Alberino's theory.
Wow. So we've got the Bible, and we've got these ancient structures, both encoded with these hidden messages. It's like a giant puzzle waiting to be solved.
Exactly. And remember that astronomical alignment between the Sphinx and Cusco that we talked about earlier.
Right. Both time-stamped to the age of Leo. Around 10,500 BC, that was mind-blowing.
It is pretty amazing.
But does Alberino think that the people who built those megaliths were the same ones who were wiped out by the cataclysm?
Well, he definitely thinks there's a connection. He sees those structures as evidence of a civilization with a really sophisticated understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. A civilization that might have been far more advanced than we realize.
And what happened to them? Why don't we know more about them?
Well, Alberino's theory is that they were wiped out by that cataclysmic event we talked about. Possibly a comet impact around 10,500 BC.
Right, the one that corresponds with the biblical flood.
Exactly, and with the Younger Dryas impact event.
So he's saying that the flood wasn't just a local event limited to the Middle East, but a global cataclysm.
That's right. He believes the evidence for a global flood is overwhelming, and that the myths and legends of ancient cultures all over the world actually back up the biblical account.
That's really interesting. So it's not just the Bible that talks about this cataclysmic event.
No, not at all. Lots of ancient cultures have flood myths, and many of those myths also talk about a lost civilization that existed before the flood, just like Alberino is suggesting.
Wow. Okay, so global cataclysm, lost civilization, megaliths encoding secret knowledge. This is like, it's like something out of a science fiction novel.
I know, right?
It's definitely a lot to take in.
He has a major paradigm shift. But one of the things I appreciate about Alberino is that he's not just presenting these ideas as like wild speculation.
Yeah.
He's actually backing them up with evidence from a wide range of sources.
Like what kind of sources?
Well, he draws from archaeology, astronomy, geology, mythology, and of course the Bible.
So he's really trying to build a comprehensive case.
Exactly. He's not just cherry-picking evidence to fit his theory. He's really trying to look at the big picture.
That's what makes his work so compelling. Okay, so let me see if I've got this straight. We've got this elder race, these beings that predate humanity. Then there's a cosmic rebellion that leaves the earth in ruins. Then this advanced civilization rises from the ashes, builds these incredible megaliths, and then gets wiped out by a global cataclysm. And somehow, all of this is connected to the gospel.
You got it.
That's a lot to process.
It is. But it's also incredibly fascinating. Alberino believes that understanding this grander cosmic narrative can actually deepen our appreciation for the story of Christ's redemption.
How so?
Well, it helps us see the gospel isn't just a story about personal salvation. It's about the restoration of all things, the reconciliation of heaven and earth, the ultimate triumph of good over evil.
So the gospel is the key to understanding not only our personal relationship with God, but also the entire history of the universe.
That's what Alberino is suggesting.
That's a pretty profound idea.
Yeah, it is. And it's a message that's been woven into the fabric of human history, hidden within ancient texts, encoded in megalithic structures, whispered in the myths and legends of cultures all over the world.
Wow. It really makes you wonder, what else is out there? What other secrets are waiting to be discovered?
That's the exciting part. There's always more to learn, more to explore.
And Alberino's work is really an invitation to do just that.
Absolutely.
This has been an incredible deep dive filled with some really mind-blowing ideas. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we're back, and honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around all of this. It's a lot to process.
It is. A lot of really big ideas.
So where do we even go from here? Like, are we supposed to start looking for these hidden messages?
Well, you could. I think Alberino's main point is that we should be approaching the world and the Bible with a sense of wonder and curiosity. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to challenge the traditional interpretations. There's always more to discover if you're willing to dig a little deeper.
And you know, one thing that really stuck with me is how Alberino emphasized the importance of understanding the gospel, like really understanding it. It's not just about avoiding hell or going to heaven. It's about restoring our place in God's family.
Yeah, that idea of restoration. It's really central to Alberino's whole narrative. He sees the galactic rebellion, the cataclysm, even humanity's fall from grace. It's all about this brokenness and separation.
Right. And the gospel offers a way back.
Exactly. A path to healing and wholeness.
It's like that parable of the prodigal son. Coming home to his father, we might have messed things up pretty bad. But God's still there, with open arms, ready to welcome us back.
It's a powerful image. And what's even more amazing is that God didn't just wait for us to come crawling back. He sent his own son to pay the price for our rebellion, to lift us out of this mess we made and restore us as his children.
Yeah, and Alberino really emphasized that sacrifice. It's the ultimate act of heroism, a story that goes beyond time and culture, something that resonates deep within us.
It does. When we see the gospel in this light, it takes on a whole new level of meaning. It's not just religious doctrine. It's a story about the universe, our origins and our destiny, a story of boundless love.
I like that, a story of boundless love. So what do you think? Are there other secrets out there? Hidden in those ancient structures and myths and symbols, what other pieces of the puzzle are we missing?
That's the beauty of it. There's always more to learn, more to explore.
Yeah.
Alberino's work, it's just one perspective, one interpretation.
Right.
It's up to each of us to engage with these ideas, do our own research, draw our own conclusions.
Maybe we'll uncover some of those messages in stone ourselves.
You never know.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like my brain is about to explode.
Haha, I know what you mean.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through ancient wisdom. And who knows, maybe we'll be back for another deep dive soon.
I'm always up for it.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep searching for the truth.